Russia's tactics of infiltrating small infantry groups behind Ukrainian defensive positions are increasingly worrying military analysts, The Times reports. The authors of the publication describe the evolution of Russian tactics at the front. Instead of massive meat assaults and attempts to forcefully push through the Ukrainian defense, the Russian command now uses its soldiers as bait to reveal the positions of the Ukrainian defense. Since the early days of the war, the fighting has been portrayed as a contest between the cunning of the Ukrainian army and the raw, brute force of Russia. But evidence from the battlefield and recent gains by Moscow's forces suggests that this view is increasingly outdated, the publication says. Rob Lee, a former U.S. Marine who lives in Kiev and analyzes the war for the U.S.-based Foreign Policy Research Institute, worries that Russia is not only maintaining a numerical advantage but also innovating. He worries about the prospect that the Russians could overtake the Ukrainians in technology and tactics, and that Ukraine would lose the qualitative advantage it has relied on all along. Russia's territorial gains, especially in July, were quite significant and greater than in previous months. The Russians advanced 10 to 12 kilometers in several directions. We have several areas where the front is starting to leak. Polish military analyst Konrad Muzyka agrees with his colleague. By aggregating explanations from analysts and accounts from captured Russian soldiers, The Times outlines the essence of the new Russian tactics that the Russian command has been systematically using in recent months. In many places, the density of Ukrainian defense is very low. Usually we are talking about 10 to 12 soldiers per kilometer who occupy 3 or 4 camouflaged positions and from there observe the front line. Since there is no continuous line of trenches, the Russians are infiltrating tactics. Small infantry groups of 2 to 6 soldiers try to sneak between the Ukrainian trenches, often at night, and gain a foothold in the rear of the Ukrainian forward positions, waiting for reinforcements. If Ukrainian soldiers see Russians crawling between their positions and open fire, this is also a success for the occupiers. After all, in this case, the Ukrainians will unmask themselves and then Russian troops will try to destroy these positions with drone strikes or aerial bombs. The fact that most Russian soldiers die trying to crawl a little forward or at least simply find camouflaged Ukrainian positions does not matter to the Russian command. Soon, Russia will send more of the same. As The Times notes, amid the many examples of Ukrainian ingenuity and the Russian military's spectacular disregard for human life, it can be easy to miss that Russia's generals are actually constantly innovating too. For example, near Pokrovsk, the Russians are quite actively using drones to provide everything they need to those of their soldiers who were able to crawl into the Ukrainian rear and cannot receive food and ammunition through regular army logistics. And all this against the backdrop of the fact that the huge losses of manpower have virtually no significance for the Russians. As The Times writes, Russia steadily recruits about 30,000 new recruits into the army every month, while Ukraine barely reaches a third of this figure. The aforementioned American analyst Rob Lee warns that further accumulation of Russian superiority in various aspects of warfare could create truly serious problems for Ukraine, even compared to what it has now. The Russians have not achieved the desired result on the front this summer, failing to achieve a major breakthrough. But the trend on the battlefield is clear, and it has left some Ukrainians with a sense of foreboding. Russia's success in recruiting forces and using them more effectively has increased the pressure on Zelensky and convinced Putin that the fight is worth continuing for a while longer. The Times concludes,
on the night of August 17th, the Russian armed forces suffered serious losses in the Kursk region. An unnamed high-ranking officer of the Russian armed forces with the rank of general was hit. This was reported by the Russian ZI source, Northern Channel, associated with the Russian armed forces. The officer's identity is hidden, as is his position. In the Kursk region, the Russian army lost another general. He is alive, but in serious condition, traumatic amputation of the arm and part of the leg. We are waiting for details. We hope that the officials will not try to hide this information, as they did with Gudkov. The victim is receiving all the necessary medical care, the channel wrote. Ukraine's main intelligence directorate says that Ukrainian forces struck a column of Russian troops in the Kursk region, leaving Lieutenant General Esadullah Abashev, deputy commander of the North Group of Forces of the Russian Armed Forces, seriously wounded. Abashev was urgently airlifted to the Vishnevsky Central Clinical Hospital in Moscow, where doctors amputated his arm and leg. HUR reiterates that for every war crime against the Ukrainian people, there will be just retribution, the intelligence agency said. According to Evocation Info outlet, Abashev graduated from the Kharkiv Higher Tank Command School in 1989 and went on to participate in multiple Kremlin-backed military operations. He took part in every Kremlin-led military operation: the Armenian-Azerbaijani conflict, the Second Chechen War, Russia's invasion of Georgia in 2008, and the terrorist campaign in Syria. For each of these bloody feats, Abashev was personally awarded the Order of Courage by Putin, the report said. Since February 24, 2022, Abashev has taken part in Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, commanding the 2nd Army Corps of the so-called Luhansk People's Republic. In August 2024, amid intensified Ukrainian operations along the border with Russia, Abashev was appointed commander of Russia's border cover group in the Kursk direction. Since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Russian army has suffered unprecedented losses among high-ranking officers. Analysts note that this indicates a high level of training and effectiveness of the Ukrainian defense forces, as well as serious problems in the organization and security of the Russian armed forces. The invading Russian army once again attempted to launch an assault in the direction of Kupiansk city in the Kharkiv region. The invaders, trying to advance with 2 tanks, 3 armored personnel carriers, and around 40 infantry soldiers, were stopped by the fighters of Ukraine's 429th Achilles Separate Unmanned Systems Regiment, the 116th Brigade, and the 15th Brigade. Strikes from drones and artillery systems destroyed the invaders' armored vehicles and a significant number of personnel. As a result, the latest assault by the occupying forces ended in failure.